I appreciate that you described like the sort of kitchen sink approach, you know, with the bitters and the HCl and the what type of person is that stack meant for, and is there a more pared down version for just somebody looking to, you know, subtly improve maybe how their digestion is functioning?
So the full approach that we talked about would be really ideal for anyone that experiences chronic bloat, constipation, loose stool, indigestion, and has an issue with a lot of foods, right? So they would say, like, I hear people say this to me all the time, oh, like, I do fine, I just, as long as I don't eat this, and they list like 15 things that they can't eat. Or people that have accepted and learned to live with digestive discomfort. You know, and that's the majority of people, right? So they have the digestive discomfort. So they have bloating, they have reflux, they have distension, uncomfortable distension. They get indigestion, so a lot of that gurgling, kind of loose bowel feeling after they eat. But most of them just accept that that's them. They think, oh, that's my system. That's just how my system works. They never look to improve it outside of maybe doing some masking with over-the-counter products, which, of course, don't go to the root of the problem. For those individuals, I would really try to spend some time, at least one meal a day, doing the full bore, right, that we talked about. For the majority of other people, if you're relatively healthy and your gut works kind of well and you just want to improve it, everyone else could use digestive bitters. Because it goes back to that idea that 50% of the digestive signaling comes from bitter receptor activation. And an kind of an underlying issue, even if you don't feel digestive symptoms, an underlying issue of not activating those bitter taste receptors is the improper assimilation of nutrients. Now you end up getting an incomplete digestion, a dysregulation on how much of the nutrients within the food that you can actually absorb. So just as an example of that, if bile isn't circulating enough and your bile acid pool isn't being recycled during the digestive process well enough, which involves the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas to a certain degree, then you can't absorb your fat-soluble nutrients. Right? Bile requires that. You can't absorb fatty acids well. You can't get the healthy fats into your system because all of those require emulsification to come across the gut lining, which is what bile does, right? So the body is generally a water-soluble system, right? Hence why we have cholesterol in carriers like lipoproteins and so on, because you can't transport lipids throughout the body. You can't transport it across the intestinal tract. You need carriers and you need emulsifiers. That's what bile does. So you're not getting any of your fat-soluble vitamins or nutrients coming through. You're also not going to absorb most of the polyphenols. You're not going to absorb most of the carotenoids well. Many of the carotenoids are fat-soluble, right? So these are the powerful antioxidants within the foods. And that is going to lead you to actually increase cravings. You're not going to get the nutritive satisfaction from the food. So your brain goes, hey, we're still low on all this stuff. You got to eat more.
Wow.
Right? So that is an underlying issue. Even if you don't feel all the really disturbing symptoms, you're just not assimilating the nutrients well.
So you're saying theoretically they might help to prevent overeating because they're gonna clear away any potential, you know, roadblocks to your body sensing nutrient repletion from your meal.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And there are feedback loops in your body for nutrient sensing and the presence of nutrients, because most nutrients will bind receptors as well, right? Whether it's cellular receptors on cells that are floating around the body or on specific cells, like, say, your muscle cells. For example, amino acid binding in the muscle cells, right? When your muscles, when you exercise and you do, you know, damage to your muscles from weightlifting, which is what you want, the adaptive change is the activation of mTOR, right? mTOR is telling your muscles, hey, we need amino acids, right? And let's say you eat. You're going to go out and eat a bunch of steak and chicken. You're like, all right, I'm going to get my amino acids in, right? But your digestion is insufficient where you can't break up the protein to release the amino acids. You can reduce the amount of protein you're absorbing from that steak or that chicken by almost 30%. So you're looking at your macros and you're going, I need to get 100 grams of protein a day. So I'm eating this much steak. I'm eating this much chicken. I'm eating this much cottage cheese or whatever it is. But if your digestive system isn't working efficiently, you're not turning on those signals through the bitter receptors, you're absorbing 30% less of those proteins. Your muscle is going, hey, I don't have enough amino acids. There's not enough leucine. There's not enough branch chain amino acids. I can't rebuild this muscle, so you need to eat more. Then so then what happens is that those signals go to your liver. Your liver is like kind of the metabolic controller, right? It's telling your different parts of your body are requesting things from the liver, because the liver is what assembles the amino acids and so on. So then the liver is going, okay, maybe I can replace it with glucose. And your liver starts making more glucose because your muscles are demanding compounds. And so your liver increases IGF, insulin-like growth factor, and glucose production, and sends it to the muscles and go, okay, store this as glycogen. Maybe that's what you need. All the while you need more amino acids, and it's not coming through, and your liver doesn't have the amino acids from the digestive tract.
Wow.
So there's like a big complication around being nutritive depleted, and actually your body going into some degree of starvation mode and then stimulating more cravings and more hunger.
Wow.
As a result of that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with whatever literature there is on protein absorption, but I know that protein digestibility is a massive variable when it comes to the quality of a protein.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting that this could hypothetically help you absorb amino acids more efficiently from your protein sources, thereby helping to facilitate muscle protein synthesis, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely, yeah. And keep in mind, like, protein in the form of chicken or steak is a complex tertiary folded protein, right? It has to be broken down into its individual amino acids. So you have to take this complex protein, which is a muscle, and you have to break it down into its individual subunits, which is amino acids, because that's what we absorb, right? People often think like you're going to absorb chunks of protein. You're not. You have to break them down to amino acids to get the benefit from it. And that requires enough hydrochloric acid to start the digestion in the stomach. Even prior to that, it requires enough chewing. Right? So this is part of the meal hygiene part, right? Where I mentioned you have to sit and chew adequately. You have to coat that protein with your salivary enzymes, and you have to coat it with the IgA that's in the salivary enzymes, right? So your immune system doesn't get activated, because proteins and peptides can activate the immune system. So you want to neutralize any potential immune activation that as a result of the protein consumption. So you need to chew, which is the macerating component. It gets into the stomach. You have to have enough hydrochloric acid to break the hydrogen bonds, which is what folds the proteins. So now you unfold the protein like a big string of pearls, and then when it gets into the small intestine, you need to release something called endo and exopeptidases and proteases. Right? So these are the enzymes that break down the protein. And the reason we call them endo and exopeptidases is they start cutting the protein from the inside out and then outside in. And then the proteases, you have to have a variety of them to work at different pHs, because the proximal part of the small bowel, the part that's closest to your stomach, is a very low pH. So you need protease enzymes that work at low pH. And then as you go further and further down the small bowel, the pH increases all the way up to almost 6. So you need proteases that work well at 6 and proteases that work well at 4.
So it starts really acidic, and then it ends up getting less so.
Gets less settled. And enzymes are very pH dependent, right? So the proteases, the protein digesting enzymes that work at the pH of 4, closer to the stomach, don't work when you get to the lower parts of the small intestine, where the pH is elevated to 6. And 6 and 4 don't sound like a big difference, but this is a log scale, right? So 6 to 4 is 100-fold different in the acidity of the digestive tract. So now you need a variety of enzymes being released in order to break up the protein into its individual amino acids. This is part of the reason why the small bowel is so long, right? It makes up almost 18 to 20 feet, because you need time for the food to move through, and that time is required to break things down efficiently. Then finally, as you get towards the end of the small bowel, the protein is broken down into individual amino acids, and then that gets absorbed through the portal vein, and it goes to the liver. In the liver decides what to do with the protein, right? So the liver will use some of the protein to make more enzymes and other compounds that your body needs, but it'll start isolating and sparing branch chain amino acids and leucine, for example. That's when the muscles are going, hey, I need repair. Then it packages those and sends those towards the muscle, right? And that's how your muscle ends up being able to build its structure again. That's how a steak or a chicken breast becomes a bicep.
Wow.
Right? And it requires this whole elegant process. Digestive bitters play a really important role in every one of those steps.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.